Welcome to the replay of Lift the Lid on Research Funding. This is where we learn, investigate, find and transform your business. Today we're looking at successful relationships in R&D. So ask you to keep your video on and keep it so you're on mute and with the video on. And don't bother using the chat function. We can all talk, it's fine. So I've picked a topic for today, actually, to follow on from the blog I put out yesterday about relationships for successful R&D. So I thought we'd have a little look at that and an interactive discussion, and then any Q&As relating to you or anything else that you've found out from today you wanted to investigate more, I'd be delighted to talk about. So some slides that Mark would recommend. Engineering that he and I are both in, you can see the demographic is quite sparse because I wore red. So this is the Rolls-Royce strategic partnership. Mark is on the far left. And this is an annual event that we had and still have to celebrate the success, but it brings together everybody in that partnership. So I wanted to give an example of what success looks, and that's the side of it being all about the people. We knew every single person there personally and kept in touch with them personally on a weekly, daily basis, and they are completely global: Asia, Europe, UK. So if you translate that into numbers, be quite careful about the metrics that you use to measure stuff, because people look at things from different lenses. I was going to make this a little bit more interactive. If any of you have got any relationships with universities already, Mark, you're excluded. Lorenzo?
Yes, I do.
So you have you and Imperial.
Me, Imperial, and other universities outside UK. So National University of Singapore, NTU again in Singapore, Purdue University in the US, University of California, Irvine in the US. This is for a startup which was born in 2019 and hence doesn't have facilities to perform especially experimental R&D. It's a must-have because otherwise there is no chance to progress without the support of and the infrastructure provided by these universities.
And how do you interact with the universities, and how do they interact with each other?
So it depends. Sometimes it's a project directly funded by the company. Most of the times they serve as a partner to access public funding.
So they get both?
Yes. Clearly, I believe that a great added value would be to be able to establish a university technology center, but that is a game not for a small player, because the starting price to set up a UTC, I can talk about Imperial. For a startup, so it depends on the size of the company, that the starting price can increase quite a lot. But for a startup, it's about £1 million investment. And that has to come through the company money. It cannot be, of course, started with public funding.
So
why? You said it has to be $1 million.
Yeah,
Lorenzo?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Where did you get that million from?
Imperial College.
Try somewhere else.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Other universities are available.
So
yes, of course.
I would make a suggestion that if you're here as your company, I'll put you in, that first of all, you have a range of all these universities and as their little mortarboards. How do you know which one is the right one? How do you down select which one to start with?
So mainly is network and then personal links with professors or research group.
Okay,
because yes, sometimes there is a big risk attached to this collaboration, is that you, and in case myself, are not in full control of the activities that go on in these different research groups. So you need to be able to anticipate a good relationship with this research group to be able to actually obtain what you aimed at the beginning of a project or scoping a project. And sometimes that doesn't happen.
I love that you said that, because so many people that I've met, and the people actually that we wrote the chapter of the book with, did things in a very quantitative measure and paid no respect to the personalities and how they could influence whether a partnership was going to be successful or not. And you could find something that was 80% technically good, but if the people gelled, you will succeed far more than if they're 100% technically good. But everything
it's interesting there, Kate and Lorenzo, 2 unis in Singapore, right? There must be a competitive dynamic you've been able to tap into, right? Or something that they want, and they want to outdo each other, can I suggest, right? Like that takes a bit of insight to notice those sort of things.
Yes, so with the motivation why some of these of the university that decide to collaborate with industry is I mean, we are talking about technical university. Exploitation of the research that they conduct is always a good let's say a performance indicator of how well they are doing with their research activities. So that's one of the reason. The other reason is that maybe they have piece of research that aligns very well with what the company produces. So it's a good alignment to also receive funding from a private company to keep doing their research. Most of the times IP, it's not their main objective. That depends also on the university you get in touch with. Some of them, they have a much more a commercial mindset than others, but that also comes down to the professor or research lead that you're talking to. But most of the time, they are just really interested to create a connection with industry, see their research exploited, and being able, of course, to publish, because that's a no-go, of course. So that there's always need to be the publishing aspect.
If you come back up, though, to the metrics of the country, Singapore itself wants to be a knowledge capture nation, which is why they've put themselves out there to do a lot internationally. The UK wants to be seen as innovative. So they're looking at best science, which you can have great science. Where it struggles is actually the commercialization of that science. And that's where we lose out at the minute, and a lot that the government are looking at. But I'd say Singapore will have the money and will put the money in for you as well. But if you took a quantitative approach, how would you select partners, Lorenzo?
So, well, first of all, that there will need to have a research group working on the area that is of interest to you. I would definitely try to read the sort of publications they make, just to understand the value. Publication it's a bit of uncertain word, because there are different reasons why people sometimes publish some reason is to increase the numbers of the, of the publication, and hence the content is not that great. So I wouldn't look at the numbers of publications. I would try to select some of the most cited work, or some of the most relevant work, and try to see the effective technical merit of those publications. The other thing I would look at is facilities. So what sort of facilities they have available, because at the end of the day, maybe tapping into the technical skills or experience of these people is part of the reason why you go and talk to university. The other reason, like for the company I work for, is facilities and being able to use certain facilities. Name. So the overall, let's say, ranking of the university, and so let's put it, the brand attached with the university. It might be relevant depending on, again, what's your objective. If your objective is you're very early on with your company, and you want to show that everything that you produce has a strong and high quality technical basis behind, then approaching universities which are regarded as a high standard for research and eventually also education might be a plus. But bear in mind that branding comes with a price. So the way you can then mention the name of the university and the sort of collaboration that you have with university will depend on how much you decide to invest and spend at that university.
I would also add culture, because
yes.
There's some universities that are more vocational, some that are more regional, because depends if you're looking for skills or research, so apprentices, or do they service the local community, or do they service the international community? But also you may find an individual who is really innovative, really open to collaboration and partnerships, but actually the culture of the institution is quite narrow-minded, which means they'll come up a little bit, and what we would see as not very collaborative might be the most collaborative that university would allow. So Kieran, have you had any interactions with any universities, or not know where to start?
We've had a few, very much project specific. I suppose the most significant one is with the University of Greenwich. A couple of years ago, we had a Horizon 2020 project, in which we, the aim of the project was to develop our engineering a little bit further along the product value chain, but also to try and do things in which would provide our product with a bit more credibility. So what we did was we approached the University of Greenwich because they have an area, a department which specifically focuses on one of our target markets, which is pneumatic conveying. So pneumatic conveying is like the pipes that you see in big factories, and the air compressors are used to push to pump air through these pipes, which would move flour and sugar and things like that around where the factories need their product to go. So the University of Greenwich has they have a pilot site there. So we used them to test our compressor within their pilot site using different types of materials that would be used within industry. And the head of that particular department, the Wilson Centre, they have really good connections with industry. Industry do come to them in order to do the same kind of work. So maybe they're launching a new product, it might be an ice cream or a cake or something, and they would come to the university to say, we're doing this, we want to implement a new we want to implement this in our factory, but actually before we do that, we want to just test how this material works through their site. So yeah, so that's kind of.
So another approach of looking at who the university already collaborates with and how that would help you further that network.
Yeah.
Sharon, did you, forgive me, did you consider it to be a success?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The project that, the technical project itself was really, was a success. And then the results that we got from that, we were able to exploit that and talk to other end users in the market at the moment to show them that, yes, we've done this demonstration, it's been validated by the university, they've written a paper on it, and this is what the paper looks like. And we're still in the early parts of our journey at the moment, but it has been really valuable for end users and potential customers to see that this actually works in industry, that we can prove it.
Have you built on that success? Because you said it started off with a project, and that's a good way to have a taster, as it were, to see if a relationship will work. And you've clearly talked really positively about it. Is there now a next step to build on that? Yeah,
so we've been talking to other pneumatic conveying systems integrators, and that's going really well. We're going to be installing a machine at a systems integrator within the next couple of months, so that they can actually operate it themselves. They can understand how our product works, and they can test it, independently. So that will also be another really positive of work that will help us to commercialize it, help us to prove it out, and provide real data that we can show.
Yeah. Now I was going to ask.
They also work with massive companies.
Say that again. You work with
They also work with real large corporate end users such as Unilever and people like that. So they've got real credibility.
So a last question for you. Have you got more research now going on? Because you've had one in the pipeline that's come out. Brilliant. Are you filling the hopper now with more research ideas?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. We've got this, we're going to be working with this pneumatic conveying systems integrator. So that will be kind of a project in itself, but not necessarily, we don't have anything in the pipeline right now to work with.
One of the things I remember people always say, oh, we need to do something like right now. Okay, well, the grant system, actually, by the time you found a partner, written a proposal, submitted it, interviewed, and been successful is about a year. And they go, no, I haven't got time to wait that long. Funnily enough, a year goes by and they go, oh, I'm desperate for money. Should have done it. So I'd suggest there is an element of looking around to see what it is that you want, that you have a hopper of ideas, of research ideas, and maybe a down select of partners and look at some calls. And you and I can have a chat about that afterwards. I can give you some pointers if you like to help, because it won't cost you anything. It's just an investment of time, but it allows you to put some feelers out there of which way you think you might go. So all these we've talked about are engineering focus, and I know that Ian and Nigel are not. So what have you found from the financial and from the medical side, gents?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a journey of discovery. I'm based in Bedfordshire, so I have connections with the University of Bedfordshire. So that was my first port of call. We got them to do some work for us. There was a grant available. The university had access to some EU money.
Yeah.
And they were able to do some research for me, and they stopped when the money ran out, basically. But it was very basic research. But since then, I've been building up my connections with other universities, including University of Hertfordshire and Warwick. But they haven't done any work for us, and I haven't really asked them to, but I'm sort of keeping tabs on them and in contact with people at the universities, so they know what we're doing and we don't know what they're doing, but they're available to us. We just need to get the funding to get them to do more work for us.
You could put NDA or something in place just to open up the conversation just a little bit. That might help.
And we do. Whenever we have a conversation with them, we do put an NDA. But something I've started doing lately is offering some of Hertfordshire University, offering some of their students work experience. And that seems to be going well. It's a bit potluck as to who you get.
Yeah.
And how good they are, but we've had a couple of really good ones, and they sort of helped with our research and development, and that's been successful.
Can I offer an observation on that? Because I'm slightly biased, because I'm used to big established partnerships as opposed to new ones, which is why it's a fascinating conversation. But on there are two trains of thought about, if you like, about where you can place research. You can just dance around and go to whoever has a good idea, which is one perfectly acceptable way, and a lot of companies do that. The other one is to focus your effort in one place. If you do that latter, which is, by the way, broadly speaking, what a lot of big companies are doing more and more now, you run the risk of losing those other good ideas, but you increase the chance of getting students who understand what you want to do and researchers who understand what your business is about. So if you concentrate in one place, there is a balance of trade. Just decide what you want to do. Neither is right or wrong. But if you're struggling to get good students, if you like, one of the ways that we've helped solve that problem is by having a more focused effort in one place. So the academics recognize the type of students that work for you, for example, and word of mouth goes.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. We found the first University of Bedfordshire, the students were sort of too green to be able to do anything for us. Whereas at Hatfield, some of the ones I've been getting are sort of PhD, studying for a PhD. So they're, it's a win-win because they learn about our industry and what we're doing, and we get their brain power working for us. I'd like to try that with Warwick and see where we go. And my takeaway from this is to approach Warwick and see what we can do there.
What's your specifics of the research you're doing?
Without sort of going into too much detail.
No, you can be high level. I'm just thinking
it's really fraud detecting fraud in payments. So you've got millions of payments flying around from everybody, picking up the ones that are the bad ones.
My husband works in financial crime.
Sorry?
My husband works in financial crime, so he's
all right. Yeah, that's where we are. Hopefully he's on the good side and not the bad side.
He is.
We're on the good side.
Please, you don't have to answer this question, but is that like thinking about applying AI to detect something, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the type of thing. So you're actually after AI people who can analyze data as opposed to necessarily what they're analyzing.
Yes.
It's not the data, it's the AI technique. Okay.
Yes.
And if you can attract doctors, I find doctorate students, particularly in their second, third year, are so focused. You can't do anything to entice them away, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So the other ATI, the Alan Turing Institute?
No.
And they are also, they're opposite the Digital Catapult. So the Alan Turing Institute are based in the British Library, but they are linked into a collection of PhD cohorts.
Oh, okay.
And I can easily find a list and a website to tell you which universities they are, so they would have a cohort of PhDs in a doctoral training centre. And the way it works is the government funds some of the PhDs, companies fund some in some capacity. There are different ways of doing that, but also the university have to offer it out as they have to convert some of their government money to work with industry. So it means that you could have a PhD student bespoke for you for around, what is it, Mark, about 20,000 across the whole PhD, 30,000, 10,000 a year.
Sometimes it's up for negotiation, depends where you go. But yeah, some of the more forward-thinking universities are keen to build their links with industry, make it relatively cheap, because the PhDs over 3 or 4 years, so the cost is spread. And they gain some benefit back into the cohort by having some people connected to industry, as Kate says, but you get access to not just the particular student
thinking.
You can access the whole cohort's thinking in some respects, because you'll get to go to their events, that type of thing.
All right.
There are other things, Kate, forgive me. There's I was thinking particularly the Bath Maths group, for example.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So there's a group in Bath University. Again, other universities are available. They're called Samba. They are maths students, actually, generally.
Yes.
So that particular group might not be the applicable one, but there are groups of cohorts of undergraduate and graduate students who are specifically seeking interesting problems from industry that they can go away and think about. First of all, they go away and think about the problem, and can they define the problem in a sensible way? Then they invite you, should you wish, to sponsor some research to help solve the problem. But again, quite a cost-effective mechanism, as opposed to paying for the whole piece of research.
Yeah.
There's a trade-off. You're working with less experienced people, but they're well supervised. And actually, I picked Samba because we've experimented with them in the past. And what we got was, we were used to working with engineers, not used to working with mathematicians. And so they came at the problem in a different way. So we went along and said, we've got this problem, there's data from the engines or whatever, and said, this is our problem. They went, oh, this looks like a problem we solved over here in some big long equation I didn't understand.
Yeah.
All right. So again, a bit of diversity of the thinking, if you like. The initial steps cost us actually nothing. So you can get that initial thinking, because they're looking for problems from industry. You go along and say, this is the problem. They go, oh, that's an interesting thing. The students will go away for 4 weeks and think about it. And their task as part of their undergraduate or postgraduate degree is to come back with this is how I'd approach that problem.
Yeah, they have a week, don't they? A deep dive.
I don't know, they have deep dive
for the week in Bath with them and answering questions, and they could take your problem. They take a problem to then turn it into a research question or a multitude of questions, because that's the other thing is, you might be looking for a grant or a bucket of money to answer the whole problem. That might not be the answer. Actually, what you need to do is make that jigsaw of it, and this might fund this bit, and that's how you'll easily get more funding, and then you could bring it together. And it's whether you put that jigsaw all at one university or you build it up over a group of 2 or 3 universities.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
I think my message there is, there are other ways of engaging that might
be more cost effective.
If you know about that, be more cost effective, or might sort your business more. I don't know, but there are other options for you to look at, I think.
Brilliant, brilliant. Hadn't thought of that. Okay.
I don't know if Warwick do something similar. They might, but I say there are lots of universities.
But have a look at the
a lot of universities out there.
Yeah, and Nigel, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, the conversation is focused on more the tech side and sort of science-based side. But my challenge really in trying to help this new charity is really to get an understanding and a linkage with the university sector potentially about how we encourage careers for those who are from a neurodivergent background. So, I mean, the research question we could frame was what could we do in terms of reasonable adjustments to make sure that those people who are able but have a neurodivergent background are able to secure employment, work, a fulfilling life. It's got a strong social purpose, this particular community interest company that we're just establishing. So I guess I would probably fall into, in terms of partnerships with HEIs or higher education institutions, is the usual suspects from my area. There's a specialism around Kent University and the Tizard Centre that has done years worth of practice, child development, understanding of learning disability, autism, ADHD and such like. So they would be an obvious place. I'm more interested in, rather than understanding the problem, more come at it from the solutions side. So I'm interested in work, really, because I think work is probably one of the best, one of the best ways for us to join people who are isolated from society into mainstream society. So if they can get work, they, can move through all of the things that the rest of us experience. So obvious places for me, would be around the University of Warwick and their employment research side. They've had pretty healthy interest in careers guidance, which is my background, and they've supported the sector develop initiatives there. But I think the danger is that probably I'm right down on the maturity curve than the rest of you. My professional work is around all sorts of public sector challenges, is always sort of stewarding large organizations through change and things like that. But this personal interest of mine is really quite important. I think that I have a passion for making sure the actual representation of this small charity is for young women aged probably 18 up to about 28 who have this background, and they've become really isolated through COVID, and we've decided that we want to do something about that. And one of the ways is to get them to get really good quality employment, work and learning advice. But obviously it's all very well giving people advice, that's just an input. I mean, I want to step ahead, step forward, and actually investigate the potential for the world of work being more encouraging and encompassing for those individuals like this. So that's where potentially the university sector might play an important role.
Is it regional, the charity, or UK?
No, it's London based, but I think the sky's your oyster. I think this is a national problem. It's a global problem.
I think there's been some reports done. Mark might remember the acronym. I don't know if it was HESA. I know Leslie Thompson Elsevier put me in for it, but there was, what's the sector group that does puts out reports about this sort of thing, Mark? That you can get booklets of. I have a feeling. HEPI, that's what it is. Have you heard of them, Nigel?
Is that HEFKI, Higher Education Funding?
No, not HEFKI. HEPI, look.
No. HEPI.
Higher
Education Policy Institute.
They have loads of research that they've done, and they've collated it together into little booklets, and I have a feeling you can go on their website and just ask for the booklets, and that might help you as to what's already been done around the country, and focus, because some of it as well sounds like an education piece on your part to teach those that don't know the art of the possible.
Yes, it is about an inclusion agenda.
If we were, forgive me, Nigel, because I know nothing about this sector, but I am very impressed with what you're doing, and the idea is a great one. It feels to me like there's two things you were describing. One is the work to understand the problem, which is a research challenge, which you might do with a policy institute at a university or something. And the other half is raising awareness, for want of a better phrase, across the sector. For me, where you go to do the research, well, okay, I don't know enough to even think about that. But the raising awareness, I suspect Kate and a few others could think of a collection of bodies, which you may already know, but who are involved in the higher education sector, who ought to be interested in promoting this type of thing, and might already have some of the links with industries, for example, to try and secure some placement. So we spoke earlier about BP. I have no idea what they do, but if they're serious about it, they are probably, like us, engaging with the learned societies. And I know the Royal Academy of Engineering, again, not necessarily in your area, but the Academy for Engineering is very interested in this diversity of thought, as well as all the rest, the gender diversity,
and the Royal Society as well.
The Royal Society. But there are other organisations like NCUB, which is the National Centre for Universities and Business, who has a leadership group who pontificate about issues in education, for example. And a lot of the vice chancellors are on that. But if they picked it up as one of the things they spoke about, it would raise some awareness. They are mostly funded by membership, but they also get money from government.
They do. They get quite a lot.
So there's an element of they ought to be doing something. There's the Russell Group, Universities UK, and all the rest of it. So if you could find a way into gain some traction with those people, maybe through some
need an
connections.
understanding of the landscape to know who the players are in it, of who to target.
Yeah.
That's the bit really, yeah. It's sort of, that's why I made the point about maturity, is that we've got to understand as a small, I've got an understanding, but it's a little bit out of date. I haven't been in this sector for a while. I've been doing my own business, but
Yeah.
so I've got to, and there's a big push now on, you know, Brexit, you know, the shortage of workers, etc., for being much more inclusive, because we've got to get more people into the workforce from our own, you know, so indigenous population. So there is a timing to it as well.
And inside universities, there are always this learning center where you know, as a PhD or a postdoc or even staff, you kind of tap into to grow your skills, which are not technical. So this also applies to technical universities, where they're always looking for workshops and new ideas to present to their members.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of the funding now that goes into universities comes with an expectation that there is some form of outreach.
Yeah. All the doctoral training centres, when they got their money, all had to state what they were going to do.
Yeah. So maybe that's a resource you could draw.
We've overrun. We've had such a good conversation. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking part. I'm happy to stay here for another 5-10 minutes if other people have got things they'd like to add, but I will stop the recording now. That one, there we go.